Good morning.
Good morning.
It is so wonderful to see you here in support of your students. And one of the things, as Dr. Hopkins said, that I do each semester is when we have the new students come in, as they're separated out today, we separate the parents and the students as well. And I do the family transitions piece. And one of the reasons that we feel that it's important, because as you know, parents, it's hard to let go. And one of the things that I think is important in the whole process is for you to learn what is it that you need to do to let go of your student. What is it that you're going to struggle with? Recognizing the differences of high school and the services that you were able to access and the advocacy that you were able to provide for your students in high school changes when they come to college. And so one of the things that I always strongly recommend or strongly advocate for and share with you is that you recognize what are your struggles going to be as you move into this transition, as you move into this process with your child, with your student, as they're moving on into college. That you've always been able to go to the class when they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. The teacher was always going to maybe send you information about what the progress was of that student if they weren't doing what they were supposed to do, or just if they're doing what they're supposed to do. When they come to college, that whole thing changes. That you don't get any of that information unless you have that open door communication with your student. And so part of it, and that letting go, is that you establish that relationship with them from the beginning. So that as they transition and as they grow, because that's what we want them to do, but it's hard to let go of our babies. We know that. And that's what we feel they are. It's like, what is it that I want to make sure that my child has all the foundation that they need and the support that they need. And how do I know, based on each of your children individually, that they are going to do what you have given them a foundation to do and be able to advocate for themselves? And we don't know. Some of our children are more passive than others, and you wonder, oh my goodness, they're going to be eaten alive when they come to school, and they have to do this themselves. And what's going to happen? But part of what I will share with you today, part of what Ms. Burley will share with you today, is that piece and how important that advocacy is. That your child, and just what Secretary has talked about today, what Mr. Horn has talked about this morning as well, is that the students have to believe in themselves. You have to believe that you've given them the foundation. You have to believe that you have created the kind of relationship with them that they will come to you and share most things, but as Dr. Hopkins said, not everything. We know that they're not going to share everything. But I think that it's important that you establish what's going to be the struggle for you in the whole process of getting them through. So when you think about letting go of your student, what do you feel is going to be the hardest obstacle that you have? That you're going to have to, the hardest hurdle, the biggest hurdle that you're going to have to jump in letting go of your student from the transition process of high school to college?
For me, it's going to be stop trying to do it for her.
Stop trying to do it for her. And in doing so, it's giving her, the comfort zone that you have that you've given her what she needs. And we all know the positives and the, I won't say the positives, the pros and cons of the personalities of our children. So we know where there are areas where they need improvement. And so as they begin to transition, and prior to transitioning, that these are the things that you want to work with the students, with your student, is to say, I know that my child needs a little more extra in whatever it may be. That maybe they have a tendency to be afraid of advocating for themselves or not comfortable with it, and recognize that how do they go and advocate to a professor that they need additional services, or that they need, just like Mr. Warren was saying, how he was able to just go. And the professors will work with the students, recognizing that these are the things that, if I tell you as a student and to a professor that I need certain accommodations and I'm eligible to receive them, hopefully professors will work with those students according to those things that they need. Because the whole goal is that they want the students to be successful. I really believe that they want them to be successful. And And if the students are able to advocate and not be afraid to advocate for themselves, then hopefully they'll begin to move into getting their needs met. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you get your child to advocate for themselves? I guess for myself, maybe I'm a crutch. I advocate for my kids. So I don't know how to teach them to advocate for themselves. I've always done it myself. I look and get all the information and I tell them, and I say, well, we're going, you're gonna do this, and or I'll tell the teachers, I'm their voice. So I guess for me, I'm scared because I don't think they're gonna voice when they get in college. I feel like I still have to
express themselves like you express them.
Right. So like I mean, will someone here kind of make sure, kind of, at least tell them, hey, that's the thing that I'm not.
That's what you have to keep pushing into them now while they're still in school. Exactly. Okay? Just like you have an IEP meeting at school, it's going to go on. You'll have an IEP meeting each year whether you're there or not. There's no more IEPs once they come to college. Okay?
So what do they have when they come to college?
They will get accommodations once they go in there, but they have to provide that documentation and proof, so there's that big difference. You're not going to get a professor calling you on the phone that's going to say, Johnny didn't do their homework, or Johnny didn't turn in the paper. Okay?
But can I call?
No.
You can pay the tuition. But those are things that you have to start working with your student with now as far as that responsibility piece. What responsibilities do they have now? Are they responsible for certain things at home? How is that going to carry over? If you're going to lay out money for tuition, then you have to come up with some guidelines and a contract with that student. If I'm paying tuition, then this is what I expect. Okay? So therefore, in college, if they fail a class and you're paying tuition and they fail, they got to pay again to take it again. There's no do-overs for free. It's not going to be automatic. Understanding your child's learning styles and them understanding it. They may not be able to come in and sign up and take 12 credits. Okay? Maybe to get their foot in the door, maybe they need to take 2 classes. Maybe they only need to take 6 credits just to start off with. Okay? They're going to be taking a placement test if they come to the community college. What is the level that they're going to be on? They're going to be taking the remedial classes to get their skill level up and to get those study skills in. How much studying are they doing now at home? How much homework are they doing now at home? How much reading are they doing now at home? What technology are they using at home that can help them organize themselves for college and trying to incorporate that into the, how many of them are you parents of seniors right now in high school? How many of you are parents of juniors? Okay. So my junior parents have a little bit more time to keep pushing them to make sure that they're getting ready and that they are advocating and asking for that help. We have a question here.
Well, I just wanted to mention an experience with another child that's older and went to college.
Right.
I found myself calling him. I tried calling the counselors to see if did he come in and do this or that. And then I call and ask him, well, did you go and get this done? I mean, you have to lay the foundation before they get there, because after that, you have lost control.
And I think one of the things that's important too, when you look at your child's learning style, and we look at taking a full load, which, full-time student is 12 hours. And if you recognize and know and understand your child's differences, then you may have to reassess that. Because I have a question for you. For every hour in class that your your student should be studying a minimum of how many hours out of class?
2 hours for each hour.
2 hours for each hour. Anyone else?
30 minutes to an
30 minutes to an hour. Anyone else?
15.
How about this? The answer is 3. For every single hour that the student takes. This means that a student that is taking 12 credits, full load, should spend 36 hours every week studying outside of class. Now, you're already spending 12 in, 36 hours out of class. So you may find that this number is a lot higher than your student may even expect it to be. Just as some of you have said, 30 minutes, 22, an hour, 2 hours, that's a lot. And recognizing that, and then if you compound that with if they're working part-time, if they need extra assistance in terms of tutoring, that's more time that's spent. So really look at it. One of the things I think that's important is that I see it all the time. Students are trying to make up for time that they've missed. It may be a year down the road, and they've taken a year of remedial courses, and they're at a 2-year institution, and they say, well, I've been here 2 years already. So I looked at their schedule, and I said, well, why are you taking 14, 15 hours? And they're overwhelmed, they're stressed out, their time management's off, and all of these things they're trying to juggle at one time. And I said, well, let's look at reevaluating your schedule. We're in the middle of the semester. There's not a whole lot you can do now, so let's see how we can manage for the end of the semester. But next semester, let's look at how can you reduce those number of hours, especially when you look at an equation where you have to do 3 hours for every hour that's in class. If that's the case, and your student needs to take more time to study and needs that additional support, perhaps 12 hours is not going to work for them.
You had a question over here.
Yes, ma'am. Even with letting go and understanding your child's desires, limitations, or what they cannot do, how do you, I don't know, just trust and believe that they'll get that? I mean, even with the accommodation that's provided, that they'll be able to study, like, strive and prosper, just.
Well, that's why sometimes you have to break it down and maybe start off. Maybe try it in a summer class, one class, and try that out and see how that. If your student in high school is not willing to do any homework now, if you're beating them over the head to get any little bit of homework that they're doing done, or they're reading outside, then academic college may not just be the right thing for them. Maybe you need to try them in a work type career classes that they have here at the college too. They have other career workplace classes where they can get a certificate for employment to get the training that they need for employment piece. If you're talking about getting a college degree, an AE degree, or moving on to a 40 degree, then they have to know what it takes to do that. And that's a discussion you need to have as a family. And say, what are you willing to sacrifice to get to where you want to go? Every person has to sacrifice something to get to the next step, whether it's time, with family or friends, whether it's watching TV, whether it's being on the computer. If you want to move to the next step, you got to give up something to get something done. Okay, so everybody has to realize that, and that's a discussion that has to constantly take place with your young people. What is it going to take to get to where you want to go? A lot of students think that they can jump from the bottom step to the top step. Okay, I'm going to be the manager. I'm going to own the business. I'm going to do this. How are they going to get there? What steps does it take to get up to the top? And they have to take it one step at a time, and you have to help them map out what is the step we're going to take. And you can help them map that out by the classes they're taking, about what supports they need, about encouraging them to seek help. How many of students still struggle with their HSAs? Doing those projects. That's a struggle. How much time and effort are they willing to put in to get that diploma? Okay? So knowing what they're doing, seeing out how much outside work they're doing. College is totally different because of the independent work that is required in college. The teacher is only teaching for that 1 hour. They're expected to go back and read the 3 or 4 chapters he didn't get to cover. Okay, so they have a lot of outside work. That's why we're saying that for every hour of class, they have 3 hours of homework. Because they have 3 hours of self-study they have to do. Remember, they're taking 12 hours of classes. Think about what they're in during the school day in high school. 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's 30 hours they're getting at school. Now they're only getting 12 hours of instruction, but they're expected to do those other hours on their own. And if students have trouble managing their time and their schedules, that's where families can come and say, okay, well, this is what you're going to do. Okay, if I'm paying for tuition, this is what the expectations are. If you don't pass your class and you fail, then we'll look at how else are you going to finance your education. If this is something you want to do, my parents always said to me, it's not until you own your car and you have to pay for gas to put in your car that you will watch how much gas you use. And when you have to put oil in your car and it doesn't fall apart, or you have to pay for new tires or repairs, that you will understand what it takes and how you're gonna take care of that if you own it yourself. And that's something we have to also help to transfer to our students, is that responsibility piece. How are you being responsible? I'll pay for tuition as long as you're passing your classes and you're doing your work. Questions?
The thing that I was told, and I wish I had was told this earlier, that when you go into your IEP, let your daughter or your child go in with you and tell them her disabilities to them and what she needs.
Right.
And I wish I had known this, because she's in 12th grade now. But let her just go in there and explain, your student go in there and explain what they need and all the time.
Absolutely. We try to protect our children,
Yeah.
because we think if they know about their disability, it's gonna hurt their feelings. Okay? And what we have to realize is practically every one of us has some sort of a disability. We're all good at something, and we're all not so good at something else. We all have our strengths, and we all have our limitations. So our students need to understand that too. Just because they're struggling with reading or math doesn't mean that they don't know a lot of information and that they're not an intelligent person. Okay? Because they may have other qualities that supersede that, just like what Derek said. He's an auditory learner. And I've had students before that couldn't read at all. But when they heard all the information, they could give it back to you in a heartbeat. They knew it. Question back here first.
My question is coming from an educator question. As a high school teacher, and you have, and I teach special ed, and you have the parents saying, and the child is in 12th grade, you fill in that agenda book every day of what they did, and I give you the accommodations if that's what you want, and I guess my thing is trying to find that happy medium, because in the 12th grade, and once again, I'm not coming from the parent, I'm coming from the high school teacher. I don't feel, and I do it anyway, why am I still filling in your agenda book? To sign, to say, today we read page 3 to 4, and your homework is page 2 to 3, and put a check mark next to it. I guess because I feel like a lot of times the parents want so much, and then when they leave high school, you're not gonna get that. I think sometimes in high school, we really stifle the child's independence and growth, because the parents get the IEP, we sit there and we want to give you what you need to have your child be successful, but at the same time, I feel like sometimes we just really, and then you leave here and it's like, we've had parents call in, the job didn't follow my child's IEP. The job doesn't have to follow that. I mean, she was really shocked and she called that the job did not follow the child's IEP. I think that's what I'm saying. I think sometimes, like, as parents and educators, what do parents want from educators that you see that we
But it's a process, so we have to make sure we start our students on that process early on. The law states that students should be part of their IEP meeting at the age of 14. Okay, when that transition starts at age 14. And that's what the law says. Sometimes we have parents that don't want their students to be a part of their meeting, but the law says they're supposed to be. Okay? And that's because we're trying to develop those advocacy skills for them. We want them to understand what the process is and how they learn, what their goals are, what their accommodations are, so they can start requesting that. Okay, you had a question?
Yes, kind of relative to what she's saying, that, with some of our kids, their dysfunction even prevents them from understanding what's happening in the IEP process. So that can be a similar problem too. But my thing is, the transition, I hear a lot of the word transition, and Mr. My memory is not good. With project, he spoke about Project Connections, and this was a program that he entered into prior to actually entering college. I would like if you could explain what that transition process is here at Prince George's Community College, and how does it, what happens after the admissions process? Where is it at in the admissions process? My daughter has already filled out an application for admissions, and she questioned, well, what about kids with disabilities? Where do you connect? And she was given this pamphlet, similar to this, about disabilities, but it focused more on people who are on Social Security already declared with some type of disability. But what we were trying to find out is where's the transition class or process? I think she could really benefit from something like that, that could really explain to her. I mean, she could listen to me and she could listen to the people in the IEP, but to listen to the community college tell her, this is where you are, something like that Connections program. This is pretty much, you know a little bit of what your shortcomings are, but this is to hear it from the place where you're going to get this education. Kind of have a different impact on what they're going to do and what's expected of them when they get here.
So she has an IEP currently?
Yes.
Okay, so transitioning, we don't have a project connection.
Right.
But what we do have disability support services. Mr. Mays, who was here earlier, who's responsible for coordinating this, part of retention services. So when we have, one of the things is that the requirement is that the student has to meet with him. If they need additional support, then he sets up an appointment with himself or his assistant, and based on that, gives them information about what the process is here in accessing accommodation services with Prince George Community College. So there's an application, there's criteria that has to be met. Based on the criteria, then he meets again, and the accommodations are determined if they're eligible for those particular things. But as we said before and heard this morning, that it has to be diagnosed, you have to have documentation in order to be able to access those services. So that is something that once the person has been admitted, then the next thing, if there's accommodations needed, they need to set up an appointment with him.
Okay, so that particular question is not in the application.
Right.
That's something that's pursued once she gets the testing. Because my daughter's problem would be the testing.
Okay, but the other part is, you need to remember too, is that the differences in the process is that disclosure is voluntary. You know, so any student with a disability can come to college. You don't have to disclose if you don't want to. But in order to get any accommodations, you have to then go to the disability support services in order to follow through with that piece. Okay, and remember again, that's reasonable accommodations they'll ask for. Some people like to have every accommodation available to that student on an IEP. When the college, the laws are different. In high school, you're on the IDEA, which is different. Okay, that free and appropriate public education. Once you become an adult and move to post-secondary ed, you're under ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that only requires reasonable accommodations. Okay, so what is necessary for them to be, it's not mandated that everything is to be successful in high school or in public education. We do everything we can so that your child meets success. In college, the student has to reach that goal with reasonable accommodations. They are not going to modify your curriculum for you. Okay, you have to meet the same standards as everybody else.
I'm going to let Dr. Hopkins, Disability Support Services, she's the director of that, it falls under retention services, and I'm sure she'll have some additional information to add to that.
Actually, I just wanted to add that if your daughter needs accommodations for the testing piece, that she still has to contact the Disability Support Services office and get that set up ahead of time. Now, that means that you have to have the documentation in hand. And at the post-secondary level, documentation is not an IEP. It's the actual psychoeducational documentation that has been administered that actually says this is X, Y, and Z. This is the disability. And it's not an IEP.
What is that called? Yeah, she has a letter from a testing area. Psychological. Yeah, psychological, that says that she should have some type of accommodations for testing. Is that what you're talking about?
Right.
Okay.
Now, you also have to keep in mind, too, that, for example, if a student has a reading, a learning disability in reading, there's not really that much accommodation that we can provide in the testing of reading. They have to be able to do the reading on their own. Otherwise, then we're not really testing them. Just with a math disability as well, on the math placement test, this is not in the classroom now, this is just on the placement test. they're not allowed to use a calculator, okay? Because we're actually testing for the ability to be able to compute. And usually the basic assessment that's done in math is adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, basically, okay? So just keep that in mind. And the tests are not timed, so they're untimed, so you work at your own rate of speed. So when we talk about needing an accommodation for testing, we do have a room where students can take the test without a lot of hoopla around.
Please don't take this the wrong way, but I mean, just hearing what you're saying, technically in my mind, I'm not saying college would not be best for my child, but if they got all these accommodations in high school where they eliminated tests, questions or answers, or they gave them calculators, or they read, and then you're telling me they go to college and then they don't have none of these accommodations, and they're, to me it's like it's not balanced because they're used to getting these accommodations in high school, and now in college, even with this IEP, you're saying basically it's not, I'm not saying that the IEP
You can't use the IEP to determine that the student has a disability. They have to have
right, the special psychological piece. But even when they have that, you still don't really accommodate them far as, like you said, they, you know, if they can't read, no one will sit there and read it to them.
Yeah. The laws are different, as Mrs. Burley pointed out. The laws are different for students who are in secondary versus the post-secondary. And the post-secondary laws state that you have to be otherwise qualified. We interpret it in many different ways. But there is an expectation that the student basically is college ready. And we will support them to make the playing field, as they say, even. But if they are taking a test that's going to measure their ability to read, then we cannot read the material for them.
Okay, what do you mean when you made the comment, college ready? I mean,
Right.
there's
The law states you get a free and appropriate public education. You have the right to that free and appropriate public education,
right.
K through 12. Okay, college isn't a right. It's
Okay,
a privilege.
yeah.
Okay, so therefore you have to meet the same requirements in a college class that every other student does with reasonable accommodations.
Okay.
Means after you take your placement test, the placement test is testing your reading. So that may say that you may need to take a remedial reading class first.
But if you have reading comprehension, that
Well, reading comprehension, you have to be able to read it to comprehend it, not listening to it. They're not testing auditory comprehension. They're testing your reading comprehension first to say this is what you need. Okay? So that's what that accommodation is. Then afterwards, if you have the comprehension, you can get books on tape, you can get auditory things that will help you get through some of that.
And we'll provide that to students.
Hi, I'm here with my sister and my niece. But I just wanted to make a comment to some of the parents here. I'm a professor at a college in this area, and I have several students over the years that I've been teaching that I've gotten letters because they've been in disability. It still works. I have students, older, younger, young kids that come out of high school, and older people who have disabilities. Now, most of the colleges, even here at PG, we have PowerPoint presentations that are uploaded for the students, and they read them to them. It's verbal. So that means that even if it's notes that they have in a book, it reads them to them. And also with my students, I let them retake quizzes. I just accommodate them. And most of the professors that I know, my colleagues, I have a few that work here, we accommodate them. If they didn't do well on the quiz, we ask them, we tell them, you need to read this again. I'll reset quizzes in the computer thing and let them take it again. So don't be afraid, because they'll make it. I'm just, as an advocate, as a professor, I pay my students C's, B's, they do very well in college. They don't necessarily, might not get an A in certain courses or whatever, but they're going to be successful, and they're going to understand the material. And most of everybody that I know, on my colleagues, want them to be successful. So we do everything that we can to make sure that they can learn the material and that you know, they can go to the next level, and at least they can pass that course.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure, because I know people I'm hearing comments, and just know that they're gonna be successful, and they just have to get a strategic plan, even if you write it out. This is with how many classes you find out from them. How many classes are you taking? When are you studying? Then you put the schedule together with them. Say on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, from this amount of time, you need to be in the library. And also, a lot of them hook up with groups at the school and they study with them. So yeah, just be encouraged. As long as you help them get that strategic plan together, they will be successful.
And I think, I think that the concern that you had earlier in terms of the foundation, that you have been able to go through, help her through the process at school and advocate and put all these things in place and call the teachers, and how do you feel safe and comfortable that she's going to be able to do this on her own? And one of it, as we have continued to talk about, is that communication, is to ask her, what does she need? You know some of the things that she'll need. You know some of the things that she may be challenged by. And so it's looking at helping her transition, helping her build and grow to move on, because part of our role as parents is that we know they're going to fly out the nest, and that we have to give them the strength. We have to recognize what it is that they need, and they have to also share with us what they need, because they're going to have to learn how to do that when they go out. So we begin to give them that foundation, knowing that it's not going to be perfect the first time. It's going to be kind of clumsy. They're going to fall. That's okay. You can fall. We've all fallen. But what's important is, what is their constitution? What is it that you've given them as a foundation to get up when they fall, and to get up and advocate for themselves so that they can do it? And so giving her, you know, that room to do what she needs to do. I advocate a lot with my clients about baby steps. And they talk about, oh, I can't do all these things, I've got all this to do. I said, okay, let's look at this in terms of a person that is trying to climb Mount Everest. If one can leap there and one has to take baby steps there, will they still get to the top of the mountain? And the answer is yes. It just may take a little bit longer. Does that matter? No, you still get there. The goal is that you're still consistently achieving your goal by taking those steps. It's just going to take you a little bit longer, and accepting the fact that that's how you learn. That you need to give yourself and accept who you are so that you learn what your learning style is.
You have a question right there.
I have two questions. Continuing to, I think, once you talk about IEP, I'm a parent of my daughter. And a lot of things I learned when I used to go to these IEP meetings, I used to had my daughter attend. Now, she was going to Thomas Johnson and now going to Flint. Now, since she's been in Flint, they used to say that they don't like to pull her out of her classes, that she might be taking tests. I'm not going to be getting a girl test, but I used to sit in there and I'm like, you called me. You woke me up out of my place to come out for IEP. Now, what's wrong with my daughter? Because they said, well, they probably have a talk to her, but I said, that's not the point. I'm the mother, you don't need to come in the IEP. She needs to know what y'all talking about. And a lot of times, I never could understand a lot of things they were saying, because some of the teachers were trying to tell you something and then they want to respond back, but I could never get my response back.
Okay.
I had to kind of stop them. I'm saying, you ask my question. Can I just do a respond back? Oh, well, we got two moves. We don't have that much time. You won't go to me out there and tell me we don't have time. And I'm trying to, well, we got other meetings we have to attend. And I'm making an appointment. I used to kind of get frustrated about it. Then I said, well, if I come back out here, I need to speak to you. I need to speak to him, her, and everybody else in the meeting.
Right, well, you want the students to participate in the meetings, okay, and they should be coming out of class to come to their meetings, okay, and they should even be preparing ahead of time to come to their meetings and to know what's being said. You know, yes, we do have to work a little bit more on that and getting the students more involved and getting them to participate more. So we are working on training our teachers a little bit better as well to help with that.
Okay. You all don't have the project, doing some of the project.
Connections, and that was the project in New Jersey, but there are several different colleges around that do have different programs that are available. Howard Community College has Project Access, and they're having an open house on April 8th for parents and students, which is at Howard, so anybody can access learning disabilities and ADHD, which has a lot of colleges that have specialized programs for students with special needs.
What's it, Peterson what?
It's called Peterson's Guide to Colleges, and they have a separate volume that is for students with learning disabilities and ADHD. Okay? And that will tell you specific programs that are geared towards that. If you have a lot of money, you want to pay for private college. I know that one of the nationally known ones is Landmark College in Vermont, which is very, very expensive. But that specializes in students with disabilities. You know, they have specialized classes. You know, just like there's a college in North Carolina for students with physical disabilities called St. Andrews that has over 60% of their students have physical disabilities. So the whole campus is wheelchair accessible. They have OTs and PTs right on campus, so they can get their therapies there. The dorm rooms are all wheelchair accessible, so everything is there for those students. So there are a lot of specific colleges for specific disabilities.
Does this college have any programs for the summer? I know you said Howard, but I mean, do you know PG Community College?
We don't have a specific program here, no.
Okay.
Ms. Lash?
Is that something we could consider getting started for the county?
Yes, amen.
And that's something that we can talk up with the higher up about starting a program, a summer program here.
I think like what is startling to some parents is that to hear Mr. Horn talk,
Right.
he talked about the difficulty that he had in high school and how things really came together for him in college. And then what we're talking about now is really they had more support in high school sometimes, and now they're moving to an arena where things are more just level playing field and not the additional support. And it sounds like what made the difference for him was that special program.
Right, but remember now that special program wasn't at his local community college either. He went several counties away from where he lived. Okay, so well, because it's a lot of it is funding. You're talking about higher education, the funding, the different programs, the amount of people that are in them. There may not be enough students that would participate in it. Just like here, look at how many parents we have here, and how the notice went out statewide.
I have a question. You said went out statewide. How did I mean, like, I just want to know from my own knowledge. How did y'all distribute it?
Websites, it was flyers, it was announcements, it's been on.
Because I got it like at the last minute, you know,
Okay.
the teacher emailed it to me, and I was like, okay, try to juggle. But that's my issue that I'm having right now with the high school. They don't give the information out when y'all get it, and then they give it to us at the last minute, and they expect parents to juggle.
I know.
And I just don't think it's fair. It's like I need to have a website. I can go get all the information, so I don't have to rely on people to tell me stuff.
Glad you asked. One of the things that I forgot to mention during my presentation this morning was our very own website, the Governor's Interagency Transition Council for Youth with Disabilities, and you can access that through the Maryland Department of Disabilities, or you can access it through www.mdtransition.org.
Is that doors?
No.
Program doors?
No,
Yeah, right.
Doors is, Beth Lash is the regional director, or she'll be talking to you this afternoon.
I like that.
Doors is on the Interagency Transition Council. All of the key state agencies that work with our youth with disabilities are on the Transition Council, and we lay out the plan and monitor it for that. I also wanted to add, since we have one dad who joined us whose son obviously has a physical disability, there's another program other than St. Andrews that's a lot cheaper for students with physical disabilities. There are actually two of them. The one that's a lot cheaper is Slippery Rock State University in Pennsylvania. And a third one is the oldest in the country, and that's the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign.
Thank you.
So you sort of touched on this earlier, because I know that ADA is across the board any place that they go.
Right.
But obviously certain schools have certain programs that have higher success rates for getting students with learning disabilities to graduate. I just looked up the Peterson guy that you talked to, that's at $200 on Amazon. Do you have any other suggestions as to where you can?
Well, it's online, you don't have to buy it. You can access it, the online version, and every high school guidance office should have a copy, the public library has a copy. Okay, so that's usually in all the resources in every high school. Every public library should have the college section in the public libraries as well. Okay, so that you can access it. It's on a CD, and as I said, it's on YouTube. They have a website you can download. You don't have to buy the hard copy. Okay. Question in the back.
I don't have a question, I have more of a comment.
Okay.
I'm a special education teacher, and I feel in the high school level, and I feel that sometimes I'm the first person that's letting the student know that they have a disability. So I think to disclose, they need to be self-aware.
Right.
And much younger than 14.
Right.
And if the kids start out young, being self-aware and taking baby steps, they'll be able to disclose easier once they get to this level.
And it's true, because I've even had students, I've been in the system for over 33 years, so I've had students that have gone to the DOORS office, because they've done the DOORS referral and they've done the application, they walk in and the counselor's talking to them about their disability, and they're handicapped, they say, well, ain't nothing wrong with me, I don't have a disability, so getting them to understand, that reading and math is considered a disability, and they don't think of it that way, so it does start early on. We do have to talk to our young people early on, saying, okay, well, you're struggling with reading or you're struggling with math, we're going to work on it a little harder. That's why Mrs. Jones pulls you out for resource class, or you're in a smaller class for this. This is why we're doing the schedule, because you are struggling. I have other students that say, well, I was bad in school, so my mother put me in that small class. Okay, because I was acting up and I was bad in class, so they put me in the small room.
But also to accentuate their abilities.
Right, absolutely.
Because the students I work with have amazing abilities.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times we focus so much on the disability
right,
that we're not focusing on their ability. And when they start recognizing, oh, I can say that, or I can approach a teacher and say, this is how I learn best.
Right.
I say teachers appreciate that. They might not even be aware of that.
Right.
So just really, I would say to the parents, and I'm a parent of kids with learning disabilities, that starting young, teaching them these are your strengths,
right,
these are areas you need to work on, but you have so many strengths also.
Right.
If we need a placement test to do the certificate course,
No, I don't believe so.
and on what are we discussing about the whole process on the website?
The process in terms of being able to access disability support services? Yes. If you go to disability support, you go to the website, the college website, it will give you, and you'll look for disability support services. Under education services,
It's under college thing. You have to first start at prospective students or credit students.
okay.
There are 4 or 5 ways you can get into the program, and then it talks about student services.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you go to the main website and look under the drop-down box that says prospective students or current students, then you go to student services, which is where disability support services is under there. And it will give you that information of the things that you need on the website for disability support services. Do you have the college website? I'll give it to you.
And I'm handing out this sheet from NSTAC, which is the National Secondary Transition Technical Assistance Center, but it's high school and college students with disabilities and key differences. Okay, so this is very quick and easy about the big differences between high school and college, and there is also some websites on the back. The National Clearinghouse on the back, too, is heap.gw.edu. On that website, they have a lot of summer programs and internships for students with disabilities that parents can access for their students. What parents have to remember is that a lot of these work an entry-level job and then say, okay, well, I really don't like doing this job, but I want to go back to school and learn something else. There are, as we said, the certificate classes are in that non-credit bearing catalog you get at home all the time that says workforce development and career classes. They have a wonderful dental assistant training program here, a veterinary assistant program here that students can get certificates for to be employable and have that certification to work in a lot of places. You know, every person does not have to have that AA or the BA degree. Okay? So think about what they like to do. We all like going to a job that we love doing every day. Okay? And if they don't like being in school and struggling with school right now, this might not be the best place to start right away. They may need a little bit of time to mature first. Okay? Another question, Ms. Hall?
Yeah, just a clarification about the documentation. Are you looking for something like Blue Cop Johnson, or are you looking for something more neuropsychological?
Well, it doesn't have to be the neuropsych, usually a regular psychological exam that has your cognitive scores on it. Usually that is something that they're required in the testing office.
Thank you.
Ms. Hart, you had a question?
My question goes back to the amount of hours. When they take the placement test, will the placement test show the amount of hours that they should be taking?
No. It will just give a level of their reading and their math ability to talk about the placement, whether they're going to go into a remedial reading or math class, or whether they're ready for the college level entry class, like English 101, or whether they need a remedial class.
And will it also, when they take their test, will it say, okay, you're not ready for college right now at all?
No.
But it will tell them, I mean, it will let you know what class they
The remedial class is also the developmental reading classes. They start where the student is at, and they will work forward from there until they make the test. They have to take it more than one time. Remember, there's a tuition fee for those, but they're also non-credit, so they don't earn credits for taking them. Okay? But they get them to the level where they would be college ready.
I just wanted to add to that also, that's certainly correct. Once the student receives his test scores, then he or she should make an appointment with the Disability Support Services Office. And in that regard, then they would meet either with Mr. Mays or Mrs. Adrian Thomas, and they will go over their scores with them and give them an idea as to which classes and how many classes they should be taking. And at that time, then they map out an educational plan also, so that the student has an idea as to where they're headed.
And also, just wait till the date before classes start. Okay? You have to plan ahead, and you as parents as well too, making sure your students, high schools don't apply to college for your student. Okay? It's the family and the parents' responsibility. The guidance counselors assist, and they may encourage, but there's still an application process that families have to fill out to apply for any of the colleges. Same with taking the placement test. Okay? Make arrangements. The placement tests are given at a lot of the high schools. When they do large groups, they also can come here and take it. Take it in the spring, now or the senior year, or very early summer in June. And it takes about 30 days to go through disability support services in order to get accommodations. Remember, again, we said before, they're not retroactive. So if you don't go to disability support services to get your accommodations, and then you fail all your classes for a semester, you can't go back and say, oh, well, I had an IEP in school and I had a disability and I need to get this taken off. Well, it doesn't work that way at college. Okay, it's not retroactive, so you have to have the accommodations up front. So make sure you're planning the time ahead to make those arrangements.
The remedial classes, they become prerequisite for any other class that they need to take here?
For the credit-bearing classes.
Okay. And do they pull on the grade point average?
No.
Okay. Because they are non-credit classes, non-college credit classes, whatever grade is received in those classes is not factored into the student's grade point average.
But you may have a student that is interested in saying graphics or a computer class. They may go and just sign up and take one computer class. Okay, so it doesn't always have to be a full load or something. They may want to just try something out. You can do that in the summertime. Anybody 16 and above can sign up and take a class.
Okay.
You know, and sometimes for our
They could be
kids.
an accredited class?
like it, yeah. And as long as they're not working on their AA degree at that point, yes. Okay?
As long as that course doesn't have a prerequisite for reading.
Right. So, and a lot of our kids can do that with a lot of the elective classes. You know, if our kid is good in art or music, they may want to take an art or music class. Sometimes that would encourage our students, because they see what college life is like, they see the other students on campus, and that encourages them to want to do more. As I said, that maturity level sometimes is not there, and sometimes they have to see what the environment is like in order to get there. You had another question.
Yeah, I have one question. This is concern combination for in classes. You know, for some parents they might not know, I'm a parent, I'm always coming. I have shot communicate with my professor or my teacher, like she was saying that they supposed to kind of work with you. And I have like an evening class, and you know, I let my professor know I can't hear or have interpret. And some of the things I keep saying in class I don't understand. And I mean, she was saying like it's gonna be like an hour, if we need more time for taking the test. I don't know, do y'all work with the teachers or do they know anything about the accepting a student that's gonna come in the class, or just for me coming to class and I have to get my prepaper and we saying, this is what you need to do because I don't do this and I don't do this, or I'm on this kind of program. A lot of teachers say, what is this for? And I'm like, I'm trying to explain to them, but I don't know the background of what y'all do when y'all have y'all meet, when y'all talk to the teachers.
That's a good point. Basically, for privacy purposes, we do not notify the instructors ahead of time as to the student's ability or disability. It really is up to the student to make an appointment to speak with their instructor. As Mr. Horn also pointed out, let them know what you can and cannot do. Let them know what you, and you have to show them your accommodation sheet. Because I know you wouldn't believe it, but there are some students who don't have disabilities who can go in and say, I have a disability. But you have to go in with your accommodation sheet. That is justification that you are eligible to receive accommodations, and speak with your instructors. Because we don't, as a rule, speak with them for you.
Okay, now, nothing is gradually going like you're saying, what's the next step?
What's the next step?
If you can't, you know, get what you want with the professor or the instructor.
If you, well, they are required to provide you the accommodations that you and the Disability Support Services Office have articulated on your form. If that instructor does not abide by those accommodations, then you need to speak with the DSS office, speak with Mr. Mays. And at that point, Mr. Mays then will contact the instructor. But by just general practice, we don't do it ahead of time. Yeah.
So just like now while they're in school, you may want to have your students say, where do you go for extra help? Where are you going to get your extra help from? You know, if you're working on ADP projects, are you staying after school? You're working with your teachers, are you getting the help that you need? When you come to college, where are the places you're going to go to get the extra help that you need? You know, where's the tutoring center? Where's the counseling center?
And
where's the library?
I'm going to cover all that this afternoon. Did you have another? Sure.
I don't know how broad this is the job. When we get ready to take our finals or we have to go to play, I have a request to have an interpreter. I don't know y'all procedure what we're supposed to have or what kind. They told me that I don't need an interpreter when I'm in play, when I'm taking my test. I mean,
it depends on what kind of test is it. Is it?
Depending on whatever class I'm taking. And but the people in Blaze and nobody's gonna go back there, only this person that's taking the test.
Oh, you have to speak with the DSS office about that. Because perhaps they weren't made clear as to what your accommodations entailed. And if you needed an interpreter, because a part of the test is auditory,
Yeah, when you have to go in there, like, when I took a nutrition class, and I needed to have them, because, you know, when you read, like, some parents say, when kids reading, they're reading on their level. But then when they go to the test, when they read it, they're not understanding and not comprehending the question. But when you got somebody in trouble, they'll be phrasing and they couldn't understand what they're saying.
You'll have to talk with Mr. Mays about that. Have you spoken with him in the past?
I'm always in the office.
Oh, okay.
But I just
So-
deal with that,
Yeah.
deal with that grade, if they say, no, only one
Well, I
person.
can't really, tell you exactly what happened in that particular situation because the accommodations are all individualized based upon your needs. So you need to talk to Mr. Mays about that particular situation. Okay?
How large are your classes?
Oh, it depends. But we don't have really large classes here at all. I'd say on the average, the number is about 20 students in a class.
Is it quiet? I mean, very, it's not like I mean, is it where they can focus? It's not rowdy?
Not in the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah, I've taught a couple of classes here, and I can honestly say I've never had a rowdy class. I've never had one. You may have obviously one or two knuckleheads in the classroom every now and then, but my philosophy is you get a hold of that immediately, and you take control of the situation. So I can't, sometimes the students are boisterous when they're out in the hallway. And they can get a little boisterous if they're in the Largo Student Center. But in the classroom, no, that's not tolerated.
Also, when you're looking at schools and that, make sure you're looking at accredited schools. And I know they're gonna get into a lot of things, whether it's a career school or any other school, make sure they're accredited. You get a lot of advertisements around from different schools saying they'll take everybody and pay this or sign up for this loan. I know Dr. Hopkins will get into the financial aid piece later on. But don't sign any papers unless you know what you're signing as well for financial aid. I've had coworkers and friends that are now all of a sudden getting hit with $15,000 loans that they co-signed with their son or daughter for a private career school tuition, and the student dropped out or didn't finish, and they're still being held responsible for a lot of that. So please be careful of everything that you're signing and looking into, and make sure it's an accredited school. Guidance counselors can also help the schools and locating some things with you and helping do some of those college searches and locating some of that. Each high school should have a career center and guidance counselors as well. Another question on that?
I just want to make a comment that it was real important with my daughter to go and visit the schools and let them go and sit in a class and see what the difference is, because they won't picture themselves there until they're there.
And I think that's important that you said that. So be sure when you look, take a look at this orange sheet that I sent around that, oh, yours is green. I just realized, I read out the order. Yours is green. Because it talks about, classroom environment, it talks about grading, it talks about the different things that the students need to become aware of and become involved in, and the various resources that are on campus that are going to help them. So when you look at advising, you look at counseling, you look at tutoring, you look at all of those areas that are going to be things, and these are the things that they need to become educated about in terms of what their needs are and what services are available, because there's a lot of services here on this campus. And students need to access all of those services if they need them. They're here. And so it's becoming aware of what they are and aware of what they need and being able to advocate that. And I think of all that we've said today, Liz and I and the speakers this morning, is that it's so important for them to be able to self-advocate. They have to learn how to do that, because as they grow and they go into college, not into college, but into the workplace, they have to learn how to do it there too. That now you don't have an IEP at work, but you do have a supervisor that you can talk to say, this is how I work best. Now I'm not learning, but now I'm working best. I'm learning, but this is how I work. And in order to get the best from that employee, you want to make sure that they're doing and they're able to advocate for how they learn best. And I think that one of the things that we try to stress here at the college is a learning-centered college, where we look at how students learn differently. And because we have a diverse group of students in a classroom, one student's auditory, one's visual, one's this, so that the curriculum is set up so that the students have different kinds of projects and everybody can be successful, because there's different things that it's leaning on in terms of their strengths. So that's part of what we strongly here advocate, so that students can be successful in addition to being able to advocate for what they need to be successful as well. There's a question?
No, I just wanted to comment on what you were saying, because my daughter, I was just like every other parent here. From first grade, I was at all the IEP meetings, and I was always trying to just shelter her. But I've been trying to teach her that the real world is coming. In 2 more years, you'll be 18. I'm not going to be able to do this for you anymore. So I've been doing little things to allow her to do some things on her own, like some of the teachers were talking about. I haven't, her last IEP was this year. I didn't go. I told her, I said, I want you to go, and I want you to hear what they're saying. I was on the phone. It was a conference in. I mean, because I still want her to know that I'm going to be there for you, but these are the things that you're going to have to start doing without mommy. And then now teaching her how to go to her counselors and talk for herself. Because if she goes to school, if she goes to college, if that's what she decides to do, I'm not going to be able to do those things for her. So just as a parent, sometimes I think that we do shelter them, but we need to learn how to allow them. We're going to have to let them go. We're going to have to let them go. And I've even come to terms to tell her, college is not for everyone. So today it was a choice of coming here and going to the military school. I'm like, you might want to go to the reserves. College might not be the thing for you. You might want to go to like a technical school. Who knows? But these are the things that I'm trying to teach her now in the 11th grade, that these are the choices that she's going to make. And she has to make them. I can't make them for her.
And find out what her best fit is, because one of the things that I find a lot with students is that the parents will have a perspective and a perception of what they want their child to do. They want the child to go to college. Every parent wants, for the most part, wants their child to go to college. But what if that child doesn't want to go? It doesn't mean that college is the only way they can be successful in life. And so it's looking at, there's so many things to do, because students are here and they may not want to be here, or they're struggling, not doing as well as they could be doing, because this isn't a fit for them. But if it's a fit for them, it's to say, what do I need to do to make this happen? So I think it's looking at your child coming your student coming to terms with what it is that, who am I and what do I need? What's the best thing for me in the long run? Is it college? And being able to talk about, yes it is, or let's do something else. But it doesn't mean that that's a failure if college they decide that it's not, but it's advocating for what it is that we need. Yes?
I think that what we're talking about is giving students enough room to make some mistakes. And as a parent of a 17-year-old myself, I can tell you that I'm just sitting there waiting for when that happens. I just hope that he says, oh, this is why my mom told me to keep a calendar, or do my homework, or what have you, that eventually it'll click. But I really think that they do need to maybe make a couple mistakes. Hopefully it's not on the big huge things that are gonna ruin something, you know. And maybe that's the thing to do, is eyeball. All right, maybe this is something that doesn't quite count as much, and if it falls through, then it's not going to be that big of a deal. So I'm going to pull back and see how they do. And it's not the end of the world if somebody makes a mistake.
And it's wonderful when the light bulb goes off. I have a 14-year-old, and we have been beating our heads against the wall the entire school year to say, use your agenda book, write it down, do this, because this is how it helps you to get your work in on time, to do your homework, to do well on your test. Homework, or that's a practice opportunity for the exam, for the assessment of what you're practicing. And we've been beating our heads against the wall. About 3 weeks ago, she comes home and she said, and of course her grades are suffering when she's not doing that. So she comes home and she said, wow, Mom and Dad, she said, this thing really works when you write it down. She said, I write it down, I can go back if I'm not sure. And so she's trying to explain this to her 13-year-old brother who doesn't want to hear it. And he's sitting in the dining room like this. I said, just keep talking. He hears you. I just keep talking. I said, because hopefully it will happen to him. That it will, but that moment, you know, when she said that, I said, wow, you know, because you always question as a parent, when are they going to get it? When is it going to happen? And I just couldn't believe it. And she really, so now she appreciates the benefit of it. And so you sometimes want to just throw your hands up. You just have to keep, you know, massaging them and saying, okay, all right, one day they're going to get it. And when you're frustrated, you say, okay, who can I go talk to because of that frustration? But that's definitely.
You learn more about life by making mistakes than you do about when you succeed in life.
That's correct.
Those are your learning points, and so you just have to be able to allow the student to experience that.
And it's also the other kids, the bright kids also have trouble going to college too. Don't think that it's Debbie as well, because I can tell you from my own experience, I was a straight A student in high school. Things came very quick and easy to me. When I got down here to University of Maryland, all of a sudden it got put on me where I had to put in more effort. I did not have the study skills that took the effort and the time to put me in, so I failed a little bit in the beginning. I wound up having to pay my own tuition out of state. Okay? So, because of that. So you learn from that way too, because even our bright kids, if they don't have those strong study skills, you're going to struggle in college because it's a lot of independent work you have to do. You have to be willing to put in the time and effort. And I tell them whether you're an athlete, whether you're a musician, whether you're an artist, whatever you want to do in life is going to take some extra effort and extra time to put into what you want to do. And you have to be willing to put in that time. Okay? We get one question up here.
It's not so much a question as a comment, I think. My son is 16 now and everything, and his disability was learned later on and everything in school, but I think even with the support services that are available in the IP and letting them go, if there was more training early on as far as the teachers and other students to teach them or to tell them, you know, this is how you help this child, don't look down at them or support them, or if there was a way better to communicate and train them across the board that this is what this child needs or might not need, or this might happen when you see your friend fall out or wander off, or you know they're struggling with something. I think that would help better, and then wouldn't all fall on the parent, or you wouldn't be so clingy maybe to not want to let them go. There was more support all around and education for everybody.
My son, when he got into the Air Force, because I gave him 3 choices too, and he had flunked out of here. He came here and took the placement test. Very bright kid, but he did have an IP. His writing was like, just like with Derek, and I told Derek before, I said, my son could be your clone. Because couldn't write at all, but auditory, could remember everything. He used to get all the girls in high school to do all his homework. Came here, took the placement test, and they put him in the remedial classes. He said, oh no, I don't belong there. When he took the test again and took the test seriously, they invited him into the honors program. Okay? But again, he wasn't a student. He did not have the time management. He didn't want to sit and do the work. Okay? He went into the Air Force. He said, Mom, these guys don't even know how to wash their clothes. They didn't know how to turn on the washing machine. They didn't know how to do anything for themselves. So those types of things also teach your children. You know, your everyday things that you don't think about. We as mothers and parents, we kind of do everything for our kids and let them know that, hey, these are responsibilities as far as being an adult. This is how you fix things. You want to eat, you want clean clothes, and these are what needs to be done. So all of our kids struggle in some form or fashion. So as long as we get that. I did want to mention this. Many of you at IEP meetings, you should have gotten a copy of this. It may not have been in color, and it should have been in black and white.
Right.
But it's what happens when the little yellow school bus leaves you and stops coming to pick up everybody. And in here is a lot of resources. It also talks about going to college and disability support services and doors. All of your transition guides are in here, and connections are in here, and websites. Okay, so everybody, all my parents, you've all seen this before. You've never got one at an IP meeting? No. I mean, those names, I want to know what's going
That's the parents' right, right? That's the parents'
Well, thank you. Hopefully this morning, I'm sure this morning and this session has been helpful and informative for you, giving you, at least parents, the foundation to move forward with letting go of your student, helping your student advocate